Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Toss-Up. I'm Riley Woodall. The college football season has ended, but that doesn't mean football is over yet. 4 teams, 3 games. That's all that separates us from the franchise that gets to hoist the Lombardi Trophy with confetti for company. Jaden Daniels looks to lead Washington to its first Super Bowl since 1992 and add another milestone to his astounding rookie year. The Bills and Eagles with 2 very talented rosters, both on a path of redemption, hoping to bounce back after disappointing ends to last season. And finally, the Chiefs on a mission to do something that has never been done before: win 3 Super Bowls in a row and cement themselves into sports immortality. But these teams have to go through each other to accomplish their goals, because neither can live while the others survive. We've got all the analysis for you coming up on the Toss-Up. The Toss-Up, everyone. I'm Riley Woodall, joined by Elias Khoury, Joe Elms, and Ryan Kraics. Gentlemen, it's been a wild first couple weeks of the NFL postseason, but I'm curious, what has stood out to you most through the first 2 rounds of the playoffs?
Well, I feel like you can't even overlook, the Lions lost. Detroit, they're the top seed in the NFC. Their offense has just been firing on all cylinders all year. The defense, lots of injuries, but they managed to be really just continue to be effective somehow under defensive coordinator Aaron Glenn, but then just laying an egg, really, in their first playoff game against Washington, at home, by the way, and then subsequently losing both the coordinators, but that's a story for another day.
And 5 turnovers, you're not going to beat any team.
Yeah, you are not going to beat any team with 5 turnovers in a game.
I was going to say, I'll second that. I think the Lions have definitely been my biggest surprise. And everybody will say whatever they want about the defense and the way that they underperformed in that matchup. The offense, Riley, you touched on it a little bit with the 5 turnovers. This has been one of the most dynamic offenses in the league just this entire season. The number of playmakers on that team, Jared Goff able to revitalize his career, and they just fell flat. 5 turnovers. Like Joe said, you're never going to win a game doing that. That was shocking and disappointing, I think, for a lot of NFL fans that maybe didn't have a team to root for and jumped on that Lions train.
Yeah, going off of that, the passing game was just not there for the Lions. The turnovers were really rough to see. Jared Goff did not have his best game. And going off of that, if you look at, we've seen 10 playoff games so far. 7 of them, the winning team has totaled less passing yards. In the divisional round, every winning team had the less total passing yards, and only 1 quarterback threw for over 200 yards. This has been a playoff of running the football, effective run game, effective defense. And as we know, those are the 2 skills that travel well. And if you want to win the Super Bowl this year, I think you got to be effective on the ground and dominate the line of scrimmage.
Couldn't agree more, Elias. We're going to jump into our first individual question. We already talked about it a little bit, but the Lions fall to the Commanders in the divisional round. Detroit fans absolutely devastated. We've seen it play out this way, but we've also seen it play out where statistically the team that gets the first round bye actually wins more of the time than loses. But I'm curious, from your perspective, which do you think is more of an advantage, especially now with the new format in the playoff?
Well, obviously you touched on the statistics a little bit, and I think the numbers are about 20 since 2020 when they reshaped the way that the playoffs, look based on seeding. 61% of the time the number 1 seed is winning that divisional round matchup. 39% of the time the underdog is able to secure the victory. And so you're, of course, going to prefer the 61% of the time, but I don't think any underdog would take about a 40% conversion rate, or anyone would say no, to about a 40% conversion rate. Yeah, I'll go on the road against who should be the number 1 team in the conference. If you're telling me about 40% of the time they're getting that victory, I'm taking that. Now I would say, of course, I want to be the number 1 team, the sort of best team in the league based on, or in the conference based on record, because that means that I've performed well in the regular season. That means that I'm well seasoned. I have a team that knows how to win close games, most likely. Yeah. And so I'd prefer to be the number 1 seed, of course. But it is interesting to see how it's playing out, and it'll be interesting to see how that maybe affects strategy coming down the stretch at the end of the regular season going forward, now that coaches are are cognizant of these statistics.
And we talked about a lot about how the Lions have fallen flat, but we got to give the Commanders their flowers. What's impressed you most about Jaden Daniels this year?
Well, are you guys familiar with a man named, oh my gosh, Norris Barton?
No.
Norris Barton.
No.
So I feel like he would be the best person to explain to you guys exactly why Jaden
Pay
Daniels,
close attention here.
why Jaden Daniels is as good as he is. And I'm going to take you back to 1989.
Come.
Specifically January 22nd, 1989. 49ers and the Bengals in the Super Bowl. 49ers, led by Joe Montana, were unable to find any touchdowns through the first 3 quarters. They were able to get themselves on the board with not on the board. They had 6. They had kicked 2 field goals, tie the game up at 13. Late in the fourth, the Bengals kick a field goal, go up 16-13. 49ers get the ball back on their own 7-yard line. Joe Montana goes into his huddle and he looks at Norris Barton, the offensive tackle I just mentioned, and he says, "Isn't that John Candy?" Out of tens of thousands of people in attendance for this game, this Super Bowl game in this magnitude, you need a touchdown. Joe Montana looks up and he recognizes John Candy in the audience. That is the kind of atmosphere that we're seeing Jaden Daniels create in just his rookie year. Because for those who understand what happened in that Niners game, they then marched 93 yards, scored a game-winning touchdown. Joe Montana took home what would be his 3rd out of 4 Super Bowls with the 49ers. Jaden Daniels is cool, he's calm, he's collected, he's talented, he's winning football games, and he will continue to win football games.
Yeah, let's see if he can win potentially a couple more and win the Super Bowl in his rookie year. That'd be something, right? But already an absolutely impressive year. Joe, the Eagles and the Bills. I know you love one of those teams. I won't specify which one, but they were in 2 very tight matchups in the divisional, ended up gutting out those victories. They've been in some very close games and found ways to win. Now they're going up against the very young, very talented Commanders if you're the Eagles. And on the other side for the Bills, you're facing the 2-time defending Super Bowl champions in the Chiefs. So from their perspective, what are the things that they need to do to punch their ticket to the big one?
I'll take the Eagles first.
Shocker.
Yes, I know. Shocking. I know, everyone. I'll take Philadelphia first. The first big thing that jumps out to me is a man by the name of Saquon Barkley.
Yeah.
He is.
Might know him.
Yeah, you maybe might know him. I don't know. But the key for Philadelphia is that he needs to get his. He's going to get his. I mean, you saw he performed in Week 11 when the Eagles and the Commanders squared off at Lincoln Financial Field in Philly. He had a dominant game. I mean, come on, what else is new? And then even in Week 16, when the Commanders came out on top, and keep in mind both these teams they've split their regular season series, Barkley was phenomenal in both games. And so that's the first thing for the Eagles, right? Second thing is to limit the explosive plays for Washington. Something that I think Vic Fangio and this entire defensive unit did very well in that Week 11 game. As for Week 16, maybe not so much. But, I mean, come on. Every defense has an off game every once in a while. It happens. I'm willing to bet that's just what happened in Week 16. So for Philadelphia, what they need to do in order to win, Saquon Barkley needs to get his. Jalen Hurts in the passing game need to be more consistent than they were the week prior.
Say,
yeah,
yeah,
I know I didn't mention that at the very end.
They got weapons.
Yes,
they have to get them involved.
Ton of weapons. They need to be more consistent than they were against the Rams. Yes, I know it was snowing and it was insane, but they need to be more consistent. And finally, most importantly for the Eagles, they need to limit the explosive play, something that Detroit was just unable to do at all, but we've talked a lot about that. And, I mean, I'll deal with the Bills next, right? They need to be able to crack the code that is Steve Spagnuolo's defense, right? And Josh Allen, generally speaking, has had success against Steve Spagnuolo defenses. But that, I think, is the most important thing for Buffalo. I mean, their offense needs to make sure that they're running at a high enough level because we've seen firsthand how good this Chiefs defense can be and how good this Chiefs defense is. I mean, the Chiefs have, I feel like I kind of wonder, it's something that not a lot of people talk about. They've transitioned from, when they were first getting started, right, coming on the scene, Patrick Mahomes, that offense, they were high-flying, beating teams through the air, explosive plays. They were chucking 50, 60-yard touchdowns through the air like it was nobody's business. Now, things have flipped on their head, right? the offense is, teams have kind of learned how to play that explosiveness a little bit. Now, they've had to rely more on the defense. Steve Spagnuolo, the defensive coordinator, that entire unit has really just congealed so well after kind of just having a bit of an up and down, start their first couple years. And that's a huge reason that they have won the last 2 Super Bowls and are looking to do something that no team in the NFL has ever done, that being 3-peats. So, that's what I got. Yeah.
They say defense wins championships, and it's certainly something that we've seen the Chiefs rely on that have won them so many games. Speaking of the Chiefs, and Joe alluded to it, Ryan, they're looking for that magic number 3 in a row. They look unstoppable on paper, right? Tough defense, really solid and talented offense despite the injuries that they've had to deal with. But in the regular season, they were close to losing upwards of 7 games and found a way to win. So what do they need to find in them from those games and keep channeling that to get number 3?
Yeah, definitely. This is the weirdest Chiefs team we've seen in the Andy Reid, Patrick Mahomes era. Because number 1, this is their best regular season record in that era. 15-2. Confidence should be at an all-time high. But if you look at the numbers, look at some of the stats, look at some of these games, they are playing and performing like the worst team in the Patrick Mahomes, Andy Reid era.
Yeah.
15 wins, about 11 or so were determined by 1 score or less. This team should be playing with confidence at an all-time high. Back-to-back Super Bowl champions. They want to do everything they can to make the 3-peat, but is it going to happen? Right now, where they sit, they just had a great game against the Texans. It wasn't a pretty game, but they won and went to the playoffs. You don't need much else. Now
Win's a
facing
win.
the Bills, a win is a win, but now you have to go against the Buffalo Bills, who they've seen a lot before, and they're going to have to take it to the next level. These Chiefs teams, they succeed on a couple things. Patrick Mahomes is always great on 3rd down. He has that sort of dual factor where he can run, he can throw the ball deep, short, anywhere in the field. They have Travis Kelce. They have that great defense, Chris Jones. And last game they got to the Houston Texans quarterback 8 times. C.J. Stroud was demolished by that defensive line. George Karlaftis, a young stud, 3 sacks that game. If you're going to get sacked the quarterback 8 times, you're going to win the game. And I think for them to want to win this game, I think it's going to come down to 2 components. I think number 1, they can control that line of scrimmage on both sides of the ball, have that offensive line win, and have that defensive line get to the quarterback. I think that's going to be key to their success. Second of all, I think Patrick Mahomes need to play as the confidence that we've seen him have in the years prior.
Yep.
The touchdown to interception ratio, it's not looking ideal this year. This is arguably his worst performing year in his career. Same with Travis Kelce. Is he playing like a top 5 tight end anymore? It's up for debate. I think the 2 of them are going to have to find their chemistry and dominate that stifling Buffalo Bills defense.
Real quickly before we go to break, what would it mean for the league if they were able to get the 3-peat?
I think it's a sign that you're really going to have to step up the game if you're going to want to compete and win a Super Bowl. If you're going to be one of those teams that lets the Chiefs win by 1 score, that's a sign to you that you can't let those 2-minute drills happen. You can't let those turnovers happen. And if you want to stop the Chiefs, you have to be a perfect football team.
You have to be a perfect football team, and let's see if they can find a way to get number 3 in a row. Coming up after the break, the guys will make their picks. Plus, we'll give you the X factors for championship weekend and the Super Bowl. Back in a moment.
The Toss-Up, Fridays on IUSTV.
Welcome back to the Toss-Up. It's an NFL playoffs edition of Precarious Predictions. Each panelist will make their picks for the NFC, AFC chips, and predict the Super Bowl winner. That was a lot of P's. And a bonus, they're going to give us a couple X factors in those games to kind of lay it out for the fans to keep an eye on. Elias, I'll start with you. We're doing NFC championship around the board first. Who's your championship winner? Who are the X factors?
Well, I'm going with the Commanders. And for my X factor, I'm just going to tell you a little bit. Down there at LSU, right down there in Baton Rouge, in the NFL we talk a lot about, your Eiffel Tower, your quarterback, or no, your Mount Rushmore. Excuse me, I was getting too much into the Baton Rouge talk because what they've got there is an Eiffel Tower, and at the top is a man named Jaden Daniels who's going to take his Commanders straight to the Super Bowl. He's actually, I don't know if you know this about Jaden Daniels, he's expecting a child soon. And I believe it's actually Jalen Hurts.
Oh, my
he's going to make Jalen Hurts.
Don't say it.
His son, Terry McLaurin, obviously an Indianapolis kid. I love scary Terry McLaurin. He went to high school just about 10, 15 minutes down the road from me at Cathedral. They're going to take over this game, and it's going to be the Commanders.
Joe, I have a feeling you're going to disagree.
You're right on, Riley. I am going to disagree. I'm taking the Philadelphia Eagles, and I swear that is not, at least not too much of my my fan bias seeming through. I think the Eagles are better than the Commanders, and I think they're going to prove as such in the NFC Championship game and head back to the Super Bowl and try to get revenge for Super Bowl 57 in Arizona a couple of years ago. So I think Philadelphia advances, and as for X Factors, right, I will say it's got to be Jalen Hurts, the entire passing game. And I will also say maybe one that not a lot of people are thinking about, offensive coordinator Kellen Moore. And how what kind of game he calls, because that's so vitally important. I mean, and I personally think that Kellen Moore is a good offensive coordinator. I don't know, I'd say great, but I think he's good. How he calls this game, how aggressive he is in a game it's not quite for all the marbles like the Super Bowl is, but it's pretty darn close. So those are my X factors.
Ryan.
Yeah, I'm going to stick with Joe here. I have the Philadelphia Eagles making their way to the Super Bowl.
You guys are haters.
Listen, I think this is one of the most talented rosters in the NFL. I think they have stars at pretty much every position. But truthfully, I think it's going to come down to Jalen Hurts. I have him as my X factor, not necessarily entirely in a good way, though. I think his performance will determine the outcome of this game. We haven't seen him on the top of his game recently. He hasn't been playing super aggressively. When you look back to last week, in the divisional round, cattywampus game in the snow, Saquon Barkley just put on a show for the team. I think Jalen Hurts' ability to not hold on to the ball too long, make his accurate passes, and be efficient is going to be key for them to winning the NFC Championship, making their way to the Super Bowl. The Commanders going to Philadelphia, it's an uphill battle. I think they're going to have to play their best possible game to win, where the Eagles just need to get a C passing grade, and they'll win that game pretty easily.
Commanders, and keep an eye on the Washington defense. I think that's one of the most underrated units in the entirety of the NFL. Ryan, going right back to you. We'll speed this one up. AFC Championship game winner and X factors.
I'll tell you right now, I'm going to take the Buffalo Bills. I think the X factor is going to be Sean McDermott. I think it's kind of a mystery how this Kansas City Chiefs team is going to play, and I think the key way for Buffalo to win this game is for Sean McDermott to make his adjustments, determine how we can win that game, and come out halftime strong.
Joe.
Yeah, so if the NFL has taught me anything over the past couple of years, that you can never bet against number 15 in Kansas City and Andy Reid. I'm taking the Chiefs.
Oh, man.
Beating the Bills, advancing to Super Bowl 59. The X factor for me is going to be, I think, the Kansas City receivers, as when Sean McDermott and that Buffalo staff, that Buffalo defense, I have faith that they will kind of make adjustments to double guard Travis Kelce, whatever that might look like. It's everyone else in that Kansas City receiving core, in that Kansas City offense, DeAndre Hopkins, Xavier Worthy, Juju Smith-Schuster, Justin Watson, etc., who need to step up and make their presences felt. You know, in the past fortnight, we've had some fantastic NFL games, NFL postseason games, but can't bet against Mahomes and
Nice
Reed.
vocab. I like that word. Well done.
Thank you. Chiefs, move on.
Yeah, and again, it's going to be a great game, especially if history's taught us anything. Elias, real quick.
Well, history hadn't taught me anything, because I'm betting on the Bills. I'm putting my house on the Bills.
Have you paid attention to history?
Have I paid attention to history? I mean, here and there. Here and there. I'm a sports media major.
Sports history.
Fair enough.
Anyway.
No, the NFL hasn't taught me anything. I will be picking the Bills. Josh Allen, his fans have suffered long enough. 4 consecutive Super Bowls they go to. They lose every single one. Bills fans deserve a Super Bowl. Josh Allen, my X factor, is going to give it to them, and it's going to be his city. Buffalo is going to belong to him. Give it 5-10 years after his retirement. He'll be a borderline gubernatorial candidate in Buffalo. Josh Allen,
the vocabulary.
Josh Allen is going to make Buffalo his city. It's his home. That's going to be the city that he gives an AFC championship and potentially a Super Bowl if he's coming up against the Commanders and not the Eagles.
I've got the Bills for one simple reason. I hate dynasties. Super Bowl, back around. Who you got?
Oh, my. Well, give me the Commanders. Give me the Commanders. I know.
Whoa.
It's like I said, man, I just think Jaden Daniels has a calmness about him that his team enjoys playing together. Right, we heard that all season with the Lions. This is, and in the locker room postgame, a very vulnerable moment for those players, talking about how much they love playing together. I think that's the same atmosphere that they've they've cultivated, in Washington. I think these guys enjoy playing not just with one another, but for one another. And I think that is absolutely a recipe for success in the postseason. I think Jaden Daniels gives Washington a ring.
Joe, you've got a rematch in your version of the bracket. Who you got winning?
Yeah, so it's rematch Chiefs, Eagles, rematch of 57 in Arizona. And I think big bet on this hypothetical matchup is going to be Andy Reid, Patrick Mahomes against Vic Fangio and this Eagles defense. I think Vic Fangio adjusts, unlike a certain other defensive coordinator from a couple years ago who apparently didn't know how to do that. But Vic Fangio...
That felt personal.
Yeah, just a little. No. Vic Fangio, I think he wins the battle against Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes. Philly gets revenge.
Ryan, real quick.
Philadelphia Eagles, Buffalo Bills. I'm going to take Philadelphia. I think the Eagles have the best player in the NFL in Saquon Barkley. I wouldn't be surprised if he has 150 scrimmage yards, 2 touchdowns, carries his team to the Super Bowl.
This guy's never heard of Terry McLaurin.
Super Bowl MVP, Saquon Barkley. I think that Josh Allen, the Bills, their offense, I don't think has the exact firepower that we could see out of Saquon Barkley and Jalen Hurts in that backfield. That read option is going to be brutal, and I think it's going to dominate the Buffalo Bills defense.
Well, I disagree with you. You've heard the saying, third time's the charm. How about fifth time's the charm for the Bills? They get it done. They're my Super Bowl champions. They've been to 4. They've lost all 4. This fifth time, it's just going to be different because Josh Allen is him, as the saying goes.
Wow.
Ryan, Joe, Elias, thank you guys so much for coming on the show to talk some NFL playoffs. That'll do it for the show this week. Thank you all so much for watching. Be sure to continue the discussion and follow us on Instagram and Twitter at IUSTV Sports. And give our Toss-Up socials a follow on those same platforms as well. The football season is coming to a close. Better enjoy it while it lasts. 3 games left to determine who will stand on the mountaintop. With that, there's one thing left to do, so toss it up, find out if we'll catch it, and as always, we'll see you next week. God bless, everyone.
Thanks for watching IUSTV Sports. Be sure to subscribe at IUSTV and follow us on Instagram and X at IUSTV Sports.